If you're suffering from a disc bulge or herniation in your lower back that just isn't getting better, there could be one of 5 reasons for that. And in today's video, I'm going to reveal what they are. If you don't know who I am, my name is Harlow and I'm the Over-Fifties and Sciatica Specialist Physio here at HT Physio in Farnham. And today I'm going to be showing you what the 5 reasons are for a disc bulge or herniation taking too long to get better. Now, a disc injury to the lower spine is basically an injury to one of these things here. So these are your vertebrae, they're the bones that live in the spine. This is a snapshot of the bottom 2 vertebrae right at the base of the spine. And in between the vertebrae, we've got these things here, which are intervertebral discs. And the discs are like tough outer shells of collagen fibers with a fluid center that makes them flexible. And a disc injury basically looks like this. That is a disc bulge, and it's where the inner material in the disc starts to bulge out towards the back. And if you're unlucky, it presses on a nerve, and that can cause sciatica. Now, I see people with disc bulges and disc herniations all the time. It's one of the most common problems I treat. And there are 5 big reasons for people not getting better as quickly as they should, which I felt it was really important for me to make a video about today. So let's talk about the 5 reasons. So the first reason for someone not getting better as quickly as they should when they've got a disc injury is because they're smoking or drinking. Now, smoking and drinking obviously is not great for our health in general, but it's even more specifically not great for our health when we've got a disc injury. Now, both smoking and drinking are what we call pro-inflammatory, which means they encourage inflammation inside the body. And when we've got a disc injury, one of the big problems and why people get pain is because every time that bulge touches on a nerve, you're getting a big cloud of inflammation around the nerve root. Now, if you combine that with smoking and drinking, which again elevates the levels of inflammation in the whole body, it makes sense that that's going to make the local inflammation around the nerve worse as well. So if you're smoking and you're drinking, you're not helping that inflammation to dissipate, and it's probably going to take you longer to get better as a result. So if you've got a disc injury, it's doubly as important to stop smoking and stop drinking while you're waiting for it to get better. Now, the second thing that stops a disc bulge or disc herniation from getting better is improper sitting posture. Now, you might say, oh yeah, well, I've done the thing where I put the rolled towel at my back and, you know, it didn't really help me, but I'm persevering with it anyway. And I would say for you, that is probably the wrong thing to do. Now, when I say improper sitting posture, what I really mean is sitting in any way that makes the pain worse. And that will actually be different for everyone. If you look online, you'll see everyone start to recommend, I'll put a rolled towel behind your back. It helps everyone with a disc injury, but that's just not the case. It probably does help 80% of people because what it does is it pushes your back into basically an extended position rather than flexion. But there are 20% of people where pushing them into extension is going to make the disc injury feel worse. So if you're one of those 20% and you have a rolled up towel at your back and it makes you feel worse, that is a bad thing to do. So sit with more of a neutral spine. So really, for people with a disc injury, if you must sit, then there are 2 postures you could adopt, and you're just going to choose the one that feels best. The first one is the rolled up towel position that we spoke about. So if you take a rolled up towel like this, you put it at your lower back like this, and it exaggerates that natural C-shaped curve in the spine, and your problem feels better. That's a great thing for you to do. But if you try that and it makes you feel worse, your best position would be to sit in what we call neutral. Okay, so this is an anterior tilt. This here is a posterior tilt, which I don't really recommend for anyone with a disc injury. So neutral is simply halfway in between. And you can find neutral by rolling your pelvis forward and back on the chair and finding that midway point. So for you, that might be your best position, and that is how you should sit. You should also make sure you're not sitting on sofas, you're not spending too much time in the car, which tends to put people into a posterior tilt position, and you're sitting on seats that are nice and firm, like a dining room chair ideally. Now, I mean, the ideal really is to minimize sitting as much as you can anyway, even if it feels okay, because sitting is not great for disc healing and it will shorten up muscles in your hips and in your lower back as a result. So try and keep moving around, but if you must sit, choose one of those two postures. Now, the third thing that stops a disc bulge or a disc herniation from getting better is stretching the hamstrings. And I see this so many times. So many people come to see me having seen another physio or a chiropractor, and they've been told to stretch their hamstrings over and over and over again, and it just makes the problem worse. So your hamstrings are the muscles that live at the back of the thigh, and the ironic thing about sciatica and disc bulges is that it sometimes makes it feel like the hamstrings are really tight and that they need a good stretch. But the problem is this is going to make it worse. It's very difficult to stretch your hamstrings without also stretching the sciatic nerve. And when we stretch the sciatic nerve, especially if it's been irritated by a disc injury, it's going to aggravate the sciatica and delay healing of the disc injury. So I'm going to show you a couple of hamstring stretches now to avoid, just to make sure you're not doing them at home. For many people, stopping hamstring stretches is all they need to start to kick things into action and get things improving again. So don't be tempted to stretch your hamstrings. Let's have a look at some of the stretches to avoid now. So if you've got a disc bulge or a disc herniation, you definitely want to avoid hamstring exercises or hamstring stretches. One of the common ones I see people doing is this, where they try and pull their leg up like this. And even though this is stretching my hamstring, I can also feel a bit of a pull in the nerve, especially if I pull my toes up towards me. So if you've got sciatica, do not do that one. The other ones to avoid are anything to do with lifting your legs straight up in the air like this. So like a straight leg raise, that's also a big no-no. And another hamstring stretch that people are often told to do is to put one leg out in front of them like this and bend forward like that. So if you've been told to do that and you've got a disc injury, avoid doing it because it will make the problem worse and it will delay your healing. Now, the fourth thing that might be stopping your disc injury from getting better is overuse of the psoas muscle. Now, your psoas muscle is a hip flexor, which means it lives at the front of the hip, deep within the body, and its job is to bring your knee up towards you. It flexes the hip up towards you. Now, the psoas muscle attaches to your spine, but for many people it doesn't just attach to the bones in the spine, it also attaches to the discs. So if we're contracting the psoas muscle, what it's doing is it's pulling on the spine, but for these people it's also pulling on the disc, and that might be enough to aggravate a disc bulge and to stop it from getting better. So how do you know if you're overusing your psoas muscle? Well, I'm going to show you some signs in a minute, and basically it's anything we do where we lift our leg up like this. We want to try and minimize that whilst we're recovering from a disc bulge. So I'm going to show you what I mean and how to avoid it right now. So your psoas muscle is a hip flexor. It lives at the front of the hip. You can't really touch it unless you go really deep into here, but it attaches to your spine and it goes down the front of the leg and attaches onto the femur. Its job is this. So it brings your knee up towards you. Now, if you've got a disc problem and your psoas happens to attach to some of your discs, if you start to lift your leg up like this, every time you contract the psoas, it's going to pull on those discs and it might delay healing. Now, times when we do this include getting in and out of a car because we have to lift our legs in like this. Getting in and out of bed is another time we do it. And another time people often use their psoas is when they're trying to do core exercises like this and they stretch their leg out like this. If you're not activating your core and you're not using your lower back, then you're going to use your psoas muscle. And every time you do one of these movements, it could pull on the disc. So what is the alternative? Well, the alternative really when we're moving positions is to try and use our hands to help us move into the right position. So if you're getting in and out of a car, instead of lifting your leg like this, I would advise you to keep a nice straight back and use your hands to pull you up, to spare your psoas. Now, if you're doing ab exercises or core strengthening exercises, I would recommend making sure that you really activate your core before you start. And at the first sign of feeling anything in your hip flexor, you should stop the exercise, because that is a sign that the psoas is overworking. Ideally, you wouldn't want to do lots of core exercises where you're using your legs and dropping them out too much, just because it's so tempting to use the psoas. But if you can spare using that muscle for a while, it should help the problem to heal a bit quicker. The fifth and final reason for people not getting better as quickly as they should from a disc injury is persisting with painful exercises. Now, I have a golden rule when it comes to sciatica, and that is that any of the rehab exercises we do should be pain-free. We don't want to do exercises that causes the sciatica to feel worse. A little bit of back pain is often okay, but not that horrible sciatic leg pain. Now, many people come to me and they say, I've been doing these exercises, they really hurt, but I'm just persevering with them. And the first thing I say to these people is stop, because if it's making your sciatica worse, effectively what it's doing is increasing inflammation around the disc and the nerve, and it's going to delay healing. So if you have an exercise that you're trying to do to help your disc heal, even if you've been told by lots of people that that's the right exercise to do, if it hurts, it's not the right exercise, so you need to find an alternative. Sometimes I give people the tiniest of movements to do just to get the back moving, because that's all they can do without causing pain, but that is the right approach to begin with. Something really pain-free should be the way we start with disc rehab, and we only introduce things that are a bit more strenuous once the problem truly starts to heal. So I hope that video has been useful for you. Those are the 5 things that can delay disc healing and stop a disc bulge from getting better. If you found this video useful, please do hit like and subscribe to the channel and leave me a comment below. And if you want to get more from me, you can pick up a copy of my book. It's called Thriving Beyond 50, and you can find it on Amazon using the link below this video. Anyway, thank you so much for watching. I appreciate your time, and I look forward to speaking to you on the next one.